Okay, great job on the homework. All right, today we're going to start with imaginal exposure. Okay. I want to talk with you a little bit about how we're going to do it and give you kind of a brief refresher about what imaginal exposure is, and then we're going to get right into it, okay? All right, so thinking about imaginal exposure, again, we're talking about facing those memories that have been distressing you all this time. And so remember why we talked about how, do you remember how we talked about how avoidance maintains symptoms?
Right.
Okay, it maintains symptoms when you're avoiding the memory in the same way it does with those real life kinds of things that you're avoiding. So when you avoid the traumatic memory because it's painful, then you aren't able to get a chance to learn new things that you would have learned about the memory. You aren't able to experience the memory in its full length. And it continues to seem really choppy and really disjointed, and like those images and sensations that you keep getting in your mind when it comes back to you. Okay? So when you try to avoid something, in this case a memory, when it's a memory you really can't leave the room and get away from it. You have to push it down. Have you ever tried to suppress a thought before?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and what do you find happens when you do that?
Well, I'm not successful.
Okay.
It's usually at night when I'm trying to sleep,
Yeah.
and I notice that the most.
Okay, yeah, I mean that's almost a trick question, because the more you try not to think about something, the more it's going to pop up into your mind. I mean, we find that in non-traumatic things as well as traumatic things. I mean, thought suppression really doesn't work very well. And so when you might be able to get it away for a little while, you might be able to distract yourself, you might be able to, briefly kind of get it off your mind, but it always comes back. You're never able to really move it. So again, it's that short run, long run thing. You might be able to move it out of your awareness for a few minutes, but then it's going to come back. When you find that memories are coming back to you like that with a trauma, though, it's really a signal for you that this is unfinished business and that this is something you need to be processing anyway. And so we're going to be trying to do that with the imaginal exposure. A lot of times that can happen after a trauma. It can happen in a natural way. People will think about it. But when it doesn't happen, we need to kind of give it a jump start. Imaginal exposure is a good way to do that. So when you think about doing imaginal exposure, it's sort of like taking all those bits and pieces and organizing them, almost like you'd organize something in a file cabinet.
Okay.
So you'd put everything in a cabinet where, if your brain was a big file cabinet and it had all of your experiences in there organized by kind of experience and different meanings and different situations. You'd have a file for school stuff, you'd have a file for family stuff, a social file, and ideally you'd have one for that traumatic event as well. Unfortunately, you don't, because it's novel, it's new. You don't have a folder for it. So all of the bits and pieces of information that belong in that folder are just kind of floating around, popping up, getting in your way, coming up when you don't want them to. We're going to be processing that event, making a folder for it, putting it away in the file cabinet. You can still open the drawer and think about that event if you want to, or if it's time to do something else and you need to put it away, you can shut the drawer, have those memories remain in their file cabinet, in their folder, and go on about your other business.
Okay.
Okay? So when we do imaginal exposure, we have you tell the story of what happened. You're really revisiting it because you're going to tell it in a particular way that I'm going to instruct you about in a little bit. But when you're doing imaginal exposure, you're really processing and organizing those memories like the file cabinet. And the best thing that happens when you do that is you start to learn that those memories are not dangerous. They're painful to remember. They're distressing, as they really should be in some ways. It's a painful event, but they don't hurt you in the same way that the trauma does. They're not a dangerous event like the trauma was a dangerous event. And when you begin to do the imaginal exposure, you start to differentiate between remembering and what really happened at the time, so they become different kinds of experiences for you. The other thing that happens is that you start to differentiate this event from other events that have happened. So a lot of times that traumatic event becomes almost like a a marker. And whenever you meet anything in life that resembles that event or brings back the memory of that event, it seems as if that's like the trauma too. The more you process this event, make meaning of it, kind of organize it, the more you're going to differentiate it from all of those other events in your life, and therefore reduce the ability of all those other events to kind of bring the trauma back and to make you feel distressed like the trauma did. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does to some extent, yeah.
Is there any questions you're having so far about that?
No, not necessarily.
Okay. Okay, so remember the whole idea of habituation that we talked about before? I mean, that can happen too with the story.
Okay.
I mean, the story is not it's not an enjoyable story to tell. It is certainly a distressing story to tell, but the more you tell it, the more we do it over time, it's going to become less distressing for you. Now, that doesn't mean that the event becomes okay or that it becomes not a bad event. It's still going to be a memory of a bad thing that happened, but it's going to lose its ability to really take you off course as it does now, to kind of stop you from doing everything that you need to do. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Okay, so we're kind of taking away some of the sting out of that event, but we're not changing the event in any way.
Okay.
Okay, you're looking doubtful.
I guess I don't know what to say. It's I mean it plays enough in my mind. I don't know if that really takes the sting off of it.
Okay, so let me see if I get what you're saying. I tell this story to myself enough in my head. Why is telling it to you going to make any difference?
Right.
Is that kind of what you're thinking?
To some extent.
Okay,
yes.
to some extent. Perfect. Okay, that's not the first time I've heard that.
Okay.
Okay, so when we do imaginal exposure, we do it in a very different way than the way you do it in your head. I know you think about this all the time, and so do all the other people that I see who have PTSD. That event is right there front and center for you all the time. But remember, I think we talked in the first session about opening the book to the bad page and then closing it real quick before you look at the rest of it. That's what's happening here. And so when it comes to mind for you and you go over it in your mind, my guess is that you're going over a particular image or a particular piece of that action that happened in that event. A particular point in the event kind of keeps replaying over and over in your mind. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, we're not going to do that. Now we're going to focus on some of those points later down the line once we've established the whole narrative. But in the beginning, we're going to tell it from beginning to end. We're going to fill in all the gaps in between that you remember. I know you may not have all the bits, but we're going to put as much as you have into a cohesive narrative.
Okay.
And we're not going to, while we're doing it, we're not going to be kind of wishing that we weren't doing it and trying not to think about it and kind of coming back to it like you might do in your head. We're going to just kind of face it and go through it. And then we're going to do it several times in a session.
Okay.
So that it's prolonged and it's repeated. Now, you do repeat and sort of go over things in your head, but when you're doing it with just those bits. We're going to put the whole thing together. So that's different. The other thing that you and I are going to do together that's different is after you've done that for a little bit in the session, we're going to spend some time at the end of the session processing what happened. So when we do that, we're going to be talking about what it was like. We're going to be talking about things that you noticed, things that you remembered, and kind of figuring out what they mean, figuring out where they go in the story, figuring out what this means to you as a person who was deployed and is now home and is now a student, sort of putting it together with your life. And that's not something that's very easy to do when it's just spinning around in your head either. So there are a few things we're going to do different than what you do normally when you're just kind of coming back to it over and over.
Okay.
Okay? Now, I want to just say too, I know this sounds kind of not what you want to do. I mean, the last thing you want to do is do something distressing. So the normal thing to do is say, I don't want to say that. I don't want to say that story. I don't want to talk about that story because it makes me feel bad. I totally get that. But the more you do this and the more you process it, the more confidence you're going to begin to have in your ability to do this. You're spending a lot of time pushing it away, a lot of time avoiding it now.
Okay.
And if you jump in and you face it, my guess is, like a lot of the other people that I've seen, even at the end of this session, even though it may not be, it's not going to be totally done by the end of this session, there'll be a sense of relief that you finally made it through the story and that we're finally here. Any questions before we go? You ready to do this?
Sure.
Okay.
Why not? Let's jump into it.
All right, well, let's jump in. I'm going to tell you how I want you to do it, because remember I said we're going to do it different. So I'm going to give you some instructions on how exactly we're going to do it to make it different. Okay. One of the things is, it's not going to be a conversation between you and me.
Okay.
We're going to talk about it at the end of the session when we do the processing. But when we're doing the imaginal exposure, I'm going to have you just go through the story pretty much on your own. You're going to be telling me what happened. I'm going to be listening. Now I'm going to be here helping you out if you need. And if you get stuck, I'm going to try to help you move forward. So I'm going to be here with you. But I'm really just going to be listening, trying to get an idea of what happened as you describe it. Okay? The other thing we're going to do is we're going to try to help you not only tell me the details of, X, Y, and Z that happened, but you're also going to try to give me the emotional detail that was there as much as you can. So in order to help you do that, to really engage with it emotionally, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes while you're telling it. Okay? Because one of the things, if you tell it with your eyes are open, you'll be able to kind of look around and be distracted, and you'll look and see what I think about it, and you'll kind of check out the books on the shelf and things like that. So I want you to close your eyes. Just really get that image in your mind. And I want you to also tell me the story in the present tense, as if it's happening right now. So instead of saying, I was driving across the desert, you're going to say, I am driving across the desert. Okay, so that kind of helps put you in that setting. Okay?
Okay.
So far, so good? Okay, now, the other thing you need to know is, remember I said repeated and prolonged. So I'm going to ask you to go through it once. At the end of it, depending on how much time we have, because we're going to fill up the whole session today.
Okay.
Depending on how much time we have, I'm going to ask you to repeat it again and again until we've filled up a good amount of time to give you enough material to really do the processing at the end of the session.
Okay.
Okay, so don't be surprised when I ask you to repeat it.
Okay.
Okay? All right, any questions before we start?
Nothing comes to mind.
Okay. I have a lot of confidence that you can do this. I know it's tough, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate your going along with me, because I know you're feeling a little nervous. But if we just jump in and get going, we'll be one step closer, okay? All right, so when you're ready, I want you to get comfortable in your seat, because you're going to be there for a minute.
Okay.
Going through this. Get yourself comfortable, close your eyes, and the other thing, I'm going to ask you for suds along the way, okay? I forgot to tell you that.
Okay.
All right. So when I ask you for a suds, just give me a number. You don't have to think about it a whole lot. Just how you're feeling right now, okay? Speaking of which, what's your suds right now?
It's jumping all over the place.
Okay,
right
so
now.
just take a minute, take a breath, sit there,
Okay.
and tell me what your suds is right now.
85.
85.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I want you to just take a breath, get the scene in your mind, and then begin.
And just start whenever.
Start whenever.
Okay. We were driving down the road.
We are driving down the road.
We're driving down the road. We had just finished a patrol. I'm commanding in the front.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the lead vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
we're driving down the road, and
What do you see?
I see a dead dog in front of me. It's on the side of the road.
Hmm?
It's brown, skinny. Turn to my driver to I turned to my driver and I'm trying to make a joke about it. I'm joking about us scraping it up for dinner. Right when we pass it, I immediately feel like we got rear-ended. I slam into the dash, and I just remember being really fucking pissed off because there's no soft corners in a Humvee.
Okay. What's happening next?
Newman drops down. He's a ruck gunner. Drops down right behind me. And he starts yelling out IED. And I remember it. There's just it's just this raining sound of dirt and road hitting the sides of the panels. And immediately our entire windshield is just covered up in smoke. I take a look at myself. I'm fine. Turn to my driver, I check on him. He's fine. I yell at him to punch through the kill zone. I look back at Newman. And his face is just covered in dirt. And he's got shrapnel all over his face.
What do you see next?
Just a lot of smoke. A lot of dirt. Just remember my skin just tingling.
What's your suds?
90. We stop. We dismount. I look back and I can see that second vehicle it's pretty much just been bent in half. It's all fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
It's smoking. Jameson, he had been completely thrown out. Chavez is looking over him. Jameson's leg had been, his toes were pretty much touching his knee. His pants were all bloody.
Doing great, Ryan.
I look back at the vehicle and I see Corporal Thomas. He's still in his seat. His top of his head had been pretty much sheared right off. His face is all jacked up. His stomach is just it's just ballooning out. And just remember just standing there. I don't know, I had no idea what the hell to do.
Mm-hmm.
I ran up to him and I told him that he was gonna be alright. Right when the doc showed up. He just took one look at him. He just took one look at him and said, we just looked at him and said, oh, fuck.
What's your suds?
100.
I know this is hard, Ryan. You're doing a great job. What happens next?
Doc tells me to put direct pressure on his arm. Starts wrapping up his head. There's a tourniquet around his arm, and I don't know, it was just the smell was really getting to me.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I don't know, it was just, it was this really sweet smell.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't know, it was just like, it was just like this like plastic, burning plastic smell. And I just felt like I was just gonna fucking puke. I turned back and I called it in, and call for medevac. Told him that we had 4 wounded, 1 expectant. Chavez, he comes over to me and he shows me where the IED was. And this wire is, it's like, it's not even buried under the surface. You know, this wire is, it's like, I don't know, it's like, it's this wire I could have, you know, it's so visible. You know, that's something that I don't know, is EOD, they told us that they had swept the route and that we were clear, so I just don't know why it didn't click in my head when we drove by the dog, you know?
Yeah. So what happens next after you see the wire?
Doc calls us over and he says that we need to help get Thomas out of the vehicle. Got him ready for medevac. And they said QRF will be there in about 20 minutes. I'm not sure exactly how long it took.
Mm-hmm.
And Thomas, he's got plastic all over his stomach. He's got plastic around his head, and you know, doc just trying to bandage it. And I don't know. He wasn't moving. He wasn't responding, and I just thought that it was pointless what Doc was doing. And by the time medevac got there, I don't know. I just kept on checking with Doc, and the other guys would just ask him how Thomas was, and they wouldn't give me a straight answer. They would just he just kept on telling me that we just need to get him back to base.
Mm-hmm.
We loaded him up. We jumped back into our Humvees and we drove back to the fob.
Okay. I want you to go back to the beginning, and I want you to go through it again. That was great. That was a great job. We're going to keep at it.
We're driving down the road. Driving down the road, I'm in the front. I'm commanding in the front. We just finished a patrol, and I've just, I don't know, I just got this, I don't know, my spidey sense was just going off the entire day. I just felt like something was gonna happen. And then we loaded Thomas up. We loaded Jameson up. We jumped back in our Humvees and we drove back to the fob.
Okay. What's your suds, Ryan?
190.
Okay. Let's stop there, okay? let you take a couple of breaths. You did a great job. I know that was really hard. How you doing there?
I'm a little, I'm a little lamped up.
Okay. All right. Well, you can take a couple of breaths. You can take a minute or two if you need to. Part of being amped up and part of being so distressed right now is because you did a great job engaging with it. And you didn't pull back from it. I'm so proud of you for doing that. I know it was hard. I know it was hard, but it's going to pay off for you in the end. Okay. So, can I ask you what that was like for you?
I didn't like it. That was not fun.
Okay, that's no big surprise.
I don't know, I don't know, I don't really know exactly how to process all that. I feel, I guess I feel worn out. I just feel really on edge right now.
Okay. Well, part of that is because you were working really hard. I mean, there were a lot of times during that whole revisiting that you could have pulled back, that you could have avoided, and you didn't. And that's exhausting work. So, you did a great job. And that feeling of confusion is natural because this is the first time you've gone through this in its entirety like this. So, remember when we talked about how the story is not really well put together, not really well organized in the beginning?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you're experiencing right now. It's a confusing, chaotic event, first of all. And then the story that, as you remember it, is also chaotic and disorganized. But it's going to get better. It's going to get more organized. How did you feel about, you went through it 3 times. So the first time you went through it to the last, did you notice any differences in the story yourself?
I guess there were a lot of different sensory things that I guess I didn't really notice when I was going through the incident. That I think thinking back on it now and recalling, it was just certain things where I was really surprised that that they came up.
Mm-hmm. Things you hadn't really remembered that you remembered.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
I'm not sure. It's a lot to process. Like I said, it was just, I was surprised at all the different specifics that had come up.
Okay. Remember, you don't have to process this whole thing today.
Okay.
I mean, we're going to keep processing this for the next few weeks. So you don't have to get it all today.
Okay.
All right? I'll tell you a couple things that I noticed. Even from the first time you told it to the second and the third time, the order of events got a little bit more organized.
Okay.
And it seemed like, and I can tell that because it took you less time to tell it the second 2 times.
Okay.
The first time took a lot longer and there was a lot more, trying to figure out where things went. And the
Right.
second time you had it a bit more organized. Did you notice that at all?
I did. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So that was something right there.
Okay.
What's your suds now?
It's coming down. I think
Okay.
I'm maybe around maybe 65 or 70 right now.
Okay, well, you said it was a 65 when we, oh, no, you said it was a 90 when we
Right.
stopped. And so it's come down, and it's only been 2 or 3 minutes since we finished. And your level of arousal is already falling.
Okay.
So that's a good thing, too, to just notice. I mean, it can stay where it needs to stay as long as it needs to stay there,
Right.
but it's falling even as we're talking about it. Anything else that comes to mind about that event? Were there things, other than the sensory things, were there other parts of the event that surprised you or that you didn't expect?
Not that I can think of.
Okay, well, there's not any wrong or right answers here. We're just trying to kind of flesh it out. And this is only the first time, so we've got a lot more time to work on this.
Okay.
But you did a great job, and I want you to, I made the recording for you to listen to at home. I want you to listen to this as one of your exposure homeworks.
Okay.
So you're gonna, in a second, we'll pick another couple of in vivos for you to work on, and I want you to listen to this imaginal exposure every day. So you and I meet once a week, so that's however many weeks of therapy. But the more you listen to the story during the week, the more progress you're going to be able to make, because you're going to be able to continue processing this and keeping it active during the week. Okay?
Right.
So I'd like you to, you shoot for every day. I know you're a busy guy, but if you can do it a few times during the week, I think this will get you progressing a lot faster. Okay?
Okay.
I want you to continue to work on the breathing and listen to the session part of the tape. You can just listen to that once, but it'll be short because it's just the beginning part.
Right. Okay.
Okay? Then next week when we come back in, we're going to do this again, and we're going to keep further along down the path, okay?
Okay.
You really did great. You can be proud of yourself.
Thank you.
I know you were, not wanting to do this, and you did it, so